Aspirations of social justice, inclusive development, and sustainability seem increasingly distant dreams in a world which is dominated by a growing concentration of wealth in the hands of a selected few, ecological disruptions that undermine the habitability of the earth, and the aggressive assertion of authoritarian nationalism. In this situation, should we continue to rely on the governance frameworks that were established in the early 1990s to achieve global sustainable development? Or should we instead turn to the root causes of the shortcomings of these governance frameworks and seek transformative responses to postcolonial injustices, widening inequalities, and ecological destruction? This question is particularly relevant in the field of access and benefit sharing, which is an important but also a problem-ridden component of international biodiversity governance. At its core, access and benefit sharing, also known as ABS, seeks to redress postcolonial injustices and ecological unsustainability in the appropriation and trade of biological resources and related traditional knowledge. Before ABS was introduced, scientists and companies from industrialized countries could freely collect medicinal plants, cosmetic ingredients, microbial samples, and other biological materials from biodiversity-rich countries of the global south. They would secure intellectual property rights on the utilization of these resources, commercialize products, and keep the benefits for themselves. To identify interesting resources, scientific and commercial actors would also use the knowledge of plants and ecosystems that indigenous peoples and local communities have accumulated and passed down over generations. Yet again, while they would secure intellectual property rights, the original knowledge holders would receive little in return. To change this postcolonial pattern of resource extraction, parties of the 1992 UN Convention on Biological Diversity adopted the Nagoya Protocol in 2010 and thereby established a legally binding international ABS framework. According to the Nagoya Protocol, anyone seeking to use genetic resources or traditional knowledge must first obtain prior informed consent from the governments, indigenous peoples, and communities that hold them. Users must also negotiate a benefit-sharing agreement that ensures a fair and equitable return to the initial resource and knowledge holders. Moreover, the protocol expects these ABS arrangements to support biodiversity conservation and the sustainable use of the natural resources that underpin human well-being. Given the reluctance of industrialized countries, establishing a legally binding ABS framework was, in itself, a significant geopolitical achievement. Yet, despite a few successful cases, ABS changed little on the ground in terms of postcolonial justice, equitable benefit sharing, and the sustainable use of biological resources.
Scientific research on ABS has identified various causes underlying these shortcomings. Some of them have to do with market competition. For instance, many countries across the global south have adopted light-touch ABS regulations, if at all, to avoid weakening the international competitiveness of their bioeconomy. In countries with more ambitious ABS policies and laws, authorities find it difficult to enforce them on scientific projects and biotrade value chains whose transnational dimension exceeds the national jurisdiction of these authorities. Besides, implementing ABS in highly diverse and complex situations on the ground raises difficult questions. Who should be considered the legitimate holders of traditional knowledge entitled to shared benefits? How to calculate the value of the benefits out of which a fair and equitable share should be redistributed, and what is fair and equitable in practice? How can biodiversity conservation be meaningfully integrated? Resolving these questions is often time-consuming and contentious. In the end, indigenous peoples and local communities are frustrated by the little tangible benefits they receive under ABS. Scientific users and commercial users experience ABS mostly as a bundle of impracticable procedures, and authorities find themselves defending policies that attract critique from all sides.
Let us return to our guiding question. Should we stick to existing governance frameworks for sustainable development? Or is the current world situation requiring more transformative responses to counter persistent injustices, growing inequalities, ecological decline, and the rise of authoritarian forces? In today's political climate, focusing on the implementation of ABS frameworks under the Nagoya Protocol is likely to deepen frustration and discontent, ultimately strengthening those who seek to dismantle ABS altogether, regardless of its principles, values, and policy objectives.
To avoid this scenario, we advocate a more transformative approach to ABS. Transforming the way we practice ABS principles and pursue related policy objectives on the ground aligns with the 2022 Calming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. It also responds to the need for transformative biodiversity governance highlighted recently by the Intergovernmental Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, IPBES, in its assessment report on transformative change. Currently, most stakeholders in the ABS field agree that something needs to change. But what they actually want is generally to see other stakeholders conform with their own political, legal, economic, or scientific logic and needs. With everyone pulling in a different direction, the result is not change but gridlock. To unlock transformation in ABS, we therefore need to think and act beyond the political, legal, economic, and scientific status quo, which is arguably a root cause of postcolonial injustices and ecological decline. To move forward in this direction, we propose a pluriversal pathway that seeks to transmute the widespread discontent with the current ABS system into motivation for collective change-making. To be clear, this pathway is not about making ABS function more smoothly under the terms of the Nagoya Protocol. Rather, it is about developing alternative ways to address the socio-ecological issues that ABS, in its current form, fails to address effectively.
For scientific users, this pathway begins with working on equal footing with indigenous knowledge holders. Indigenous knowledge holders often have understandings of plants and other non-human beings that mainstream science partly struggles to grasp, because these understandings don't fit within its epistemological premises. While natural sciences still tend to view non-human beings as objects, indigenous knowledge entails ways of knowing and being that cultivate more respectful and sustainable relationships between humans and the more than human world. By collaborating with indigenous knowledge holders, scientists can therefore gain more than cues about useful genetic resources. They can gain exposure to alternative ways of investigating and interacting with the plants and other living beings whose organisms contain those resources. Collaboration on equal footing also addresses the postcolonial marginalization of indigenous peoples and traditional knowledge from academic institutions. It offers opportunities to protect indigenous knowledge beyond its documentation in static databases and libraries. One thinks, for instance, of programs that include indigenous youth, that support their interest in the knowledge of their elders and ancestors, and that allow them to grow and share this knowledge both within and outside the boundaries of academia. By investing in such collaboration, instead of focusing solely on formal compliance with ABS permit systems, scientists can directly contribute to transforming the postcolonial asymmetries between science and traditional knowledge that are at the heart of ABS. In doing so, scientists will also build a strong basis to advocate for more workable and less burdensome ABS regulations.
For commercial users, the Pluriversal pathway we propose begins with gradually divesting from standard business models. Models that treat natural resources and knowledge as separable factors of production, that give private ownership over these resources and this knowledge to those who possess enough capital to pay for them, and that reward the acquisition and processing of these resources for the lowest possible price to maximize monetary gains. Divesting from these standard business models opens space for investing in more regenerative ones. Regenerative economics recognize natural resources and knowledge as gifts that are co-produced by humans, plants, animals, and microorganisms in the web of life we belong to. While money still functions as a means of exchange, economic success in regenerative models is not measured primarily by the accumulation of monetary wealth or the satisfaction of end consumers. Instead, it is measured by its contributions to the integrity and well-being of the many human and non-human beings who contribute to producing food, medicine, cosmetics, and other useful products. Regenerative models can both support and gain from a stronger inclusion of indigenous peoples and communities. Today, ABS often confines them to the role of resource and knowledge providers at the bottom of bioprospecting projects and biotrade value chains. Supporting their broader inclusion in the bioeconomy will not only address postcolonial inequalities, it will also enable businesses to learn from indigenous communities having long-standing experience with confronting injustice, poverty, and unsustainable resource use. Besides, by adopting more regenerative and inclusive practices, commercial users will gain persuasive arguments for convincing public authorities that costly and often rather ineffective ABS regulations are neither the only nor necessarily the best way to promote decolonial justice, equitable benefit sharing, and a sustainable bioeconomy.
For indigenous peoples and local communities, the pluriversal pathway may involve using the right to free, prior, and informed consent in a more strategic way. Many community members aspire to full participation in mainstream society. Yet mainstream institutions still reflect colonial patterns that have historically harmed and marginalized them, and that to some degree continue to do so. By linking their consent to the kind of transformative partnerships described earlier, indigenous peoples and communities can move beyond receiving small benefits at the bottom of bioprospecting and biotrade value chains. In the best case, they will move up from this position and be empowered to participate actively in the transformation of the postcolonial scientific and economic systems of modern society.
Last but not least, the Pluriversal pathway invites ABS policymakers and administrators to to reconsider the governance structures through which they exercise their authority. Top-down regulation remains useful and necessary to correct behaviors that harm the public good, but more horizontal and participatory forms of governance are better suited to supporting the bottom-up collaborations described earlier. By helping stakeholders co-construct solutions on the ground, and by taking part in these processes, public authorities can advance ABS goals in ways that are in tune with the biocultural diversity of local situations. Supporting the creative collaboration between scientists, businesses, and indigenous communities can also strengthen the public adherence to ABS institutions. This participatory approach is not a retreat of the state akin to laissez-faire. It requires an extensive engagement of public authorities to accompany and evaluate initiatives, as well as to sanction players who hold on to exploitative and unsustainable practices.
The pathway we have outlined grows out of the frustration that many ABS stakeholders feel with the current system. If this frustration becomes a motivation for collective change, ABS itself can evolve. Instead of a rigid, top-down structure that expects diverse actors and situations to fit into predefined categories, ABS can become a shared space, a place to develop more convivial ways of doing biodiversity research, biotrade, and biodiversity politics. Actively contributing to such a shift is not easy. Change requires moving beyond one's comfort zone, but the current ABS system is hardly comfortable either. In the end, engaging in this pluriversal pathway can be an empowering journey, one that allows people to learn, to strengthen their agency, and to support human livelihoods and the precious biocultural heritage we hold for us and our descendants.